Morning, everyone. So thank you so much for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. I know we've got just the hour, scheduled for this morning. I am Superintendent Adamson, very proud superintendent of PGUSD. This is our second of 3 input sessions that we're having. We held one last night for our staff, and then we have this morning, and then one more this evening at 6:30 at the high school. So again, just thank you for setting aside the time to be here. Your voice is a critical part of this process. It matters. This is our opportunity to truly be able to gather important information from you as to what you feel are priorities, which are going to ultimately help us prioritize as a district what is going to end up in that master facility plan that ultimately is going to allow us to put your bond dollars to work. And so, again, we're grateful that you're here. At this point, I'm really going to turn it over to our presenters. We have 2 of them from MGT here this morning who are going to be number 1, presenting some important information to all of you that will help you in some of the feedback you provide us. But number 2 will also be sort of leading you through an interactive survey process. And so they'll kind of explain that a little bit more. I do want to say that what you do today, we're also going to be sending the survey out to our entire community and staff, so everyone really gets that opportunity, whether you're a part of this or not, to give your individual personalized voice. So that is captured in the plan that we're going to be putting together. So again, I'd like to just introduce, you'll be hearing a little later from Monica Faridai, but at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Lance Richards. Good morning, Lance.
There we go. So good morning. We appreciate everyone taking this time to come over and join us this morning for what we hope will be an informative session to kind of to give you information to kind of where the district is in terms of facilities, but also allow you then to provide some insights. I will tell you, when you leave here today, though, you go home with a little bit of homework, because it's our intention for you to be kind of ambassadors for this program, for this process, for you to share the fact that you've been here today, what's going on with your neighbors and friends. Push that out and let them know that even though they couldn't be here today, that public survey that's going to be posted on the school's website is very important, because it's very important in this process that we gather community insights, to kind of gather their concerns, to hear about what's going on in the communities and what you're seeing when you enter your children's buildings, or what you're seeing when you pass by these facilities. Because as we know, schools are the heart of a community. Schools are the reason that people want to be involved and move to a community and be a part of that community. They're a big part of your life. Even if for some of your older residents that have had their kids come through the district and they still live in this community, the schools are still a vital component of the schools and the quality of life in a given community. And good schools lift communities. That's the key takeaway there. Good schools lift communities. So we'll get started here. Just a little bit of, well, how about you turn it on? Nope. There we go. All right. So just a little bit of background. Rob Tanner's not with us today. He's a key part of our group in terms of some of our demographic analysis. Narissa Sparks is part of our group. I am Lance Richards, former school superintendent in Indiana, director of operations, elementary school principal. Any elementary? Well, that was staff was last night, wasn't it? Elementary is best job ever. And then I was a school teacher for 9 years as well, teaching grades K through 12. So a big background, 35 years or so in public education in Indiana. I always like to say, and since you're parents, I will encourage this. I still have my CDL from my days as director of transportation. I can drive a bus if we get in a jam here and we need to get out in a yellow limousine. You laugh, but all of you should consider getting your CDL, because I'm sure your district is short of bus drivers. No district have I visited in the last 5 years, 3 years, have they had enough bus drivers. And it's actually quite a bit of fun. So you laugh. What's that? We're fully staffed. You're fully staffed right now? But you will need, I know you will need, and it's a great opportunity to go on a field trip. I'm just saying, if you got to sign up to go on a field trip and you're driving the bus, you get to go. So, all right. And Monica will be presenting the second half of our presentation today with our polling. Just a quick agenda, and I'll allow her to introduce herself at that time. Welcome and introduction. Just we're going to run through these items of project, the demographics, the economics, the school district enrollment, capacity and utilization. And the key components of this are going to, as we lean into capacity and utilization and facility assessment scores. And this community engagement, this community input leads to that next step that we'll be talking about. So, later at the second half of this, you'll be able to participate in the poll. You can go ahead and scan this QR code now. We'll post it again here in just a moment. If we have anybody sign in online. Again, if you don't want to participate today, we will be posting this survey through a Qualtrics link in a few days at the district website. And any of your friends and neighbors can also participate via that survey. You can also text, and Monica we'll show this slide again here momentarily at the end of my portion of the presentation, but you can also participate through texting. All right, everybody got it that wants it? All right, so just a few quick elements here, some kind of housekeeping. These are kind of like the terms that we use in this process, and we put these on here, kind of a quick review in our public sessions, but we also have them here because when we post this presentation online, then people can kind of reference back to them if they have questions or concerns. So project initiation is what you think, that initiation methodology of those processes. Demographics are really what we're kind of leaning into in this process. And those are those data points about your community. Everything from housing type to the number of folks in a residence to education levels to economics behind those households, all of those data points. Population are the total numbers. We do an economic review of the local economy, job businesses. Industries are those jobs and businesses that are available within your community. The crux of a lot of what we do deal with enrollment projections of estimating, kind of looking back and looking forward is what we think your student population will be, and I'll talk more about that in specific. Residence versus enrollment. Residence is quite literally where you live. Enrollment, though, is the school in which you're enrolled. So if you, for whatever reason, have district students that live in one place and attend in another, that sort of thing comes into play. Capacity and utilization is a big part of what we do and a big part of our conversation coming up. And it's quite literally is, how many kids can you fit in the building versus how many kids you have there. So and I'll make up a number. Let's say you got a school that's built for 100 kids and you have 50 kids in there, you're 50% utilized. So we'll talk about those. Redistricting is the adjusting of boundaries. Impact is that change or the issues or the effect that would take place as a result of these changes, of the proposals, the ideas, and then barriers are those challenges that come in and make it harder to achieve a given goal. All right, so project methodology. We started, we did some prior work for the district last summer into the fall. And so we got to know the community, meet with district leadership. I've been here, I think this is my third time coming into the community and looking at schools and being a part of your community. We took a look at the programs. What are you offering from CTE to STEM to your music programs, those types of things all the way down, your specialty schools, your adult education. We then gathered enrollment projections, gathering that data to make an assumption about what's going to happen going forward. And then capacity and utilization analysis, we'll talk more about. And then we're at number 5. This is public input, and we will then generate a final report, final information based on the information we're going to see tonight and the information that we gather and these insights we gather from your community engagement in order to give that information to district leadership, to your school board for their final considerations. So just some kind of back to the demographics here. Monica, can we get rid of that at the top? I would touch it, but we would. Oh, how about that? There we go. All right. So just kind of a demographic overview in terms of numbers, in terms of population. You can see kind of where you are in the line of California and where you are in terms of the orange end of this smaller dot in terms of PGUSD. You're, Central California, as you well know. Our data information is from Lightcast. Our data set, it uses census data and some other things. I know that you have city level data. You have data from at the state level as well. Our 2024, using 2024, because we use 2024 because we can't get 2035 data yet. So we use 2024 because we can look forward then 10 years. So this number might be a little different than your city number locally. But so we're right now at 2024, we saw 14.6. We're seeing a decline, though, across the next decade in terms of your community, a decline of about 15%. And I want to talk more about those estimates in just a minute. For California, we're seeing a decline of about 3%, but nationally, they're estimating about 4% in terms of growth. So these are just the broad numbers, the broader numbers in terms of your overall community and state and nation. So we lose the ability to click if we lose that screen. Bring it back then if we can. Okay, there we go. All right. So population by age. Now the red block here is that 5 to 19-year-old range, and that's quite frankly, it's the age range of the students within your schools, unless they have an IEP and they're a little bit older at the tail end of this. But what we're seeing, though, in this all important 5 to 9-year-old is a decline in enrollment across that 10-year window, 10 to 14, a decline across that 14 that year window. And then a little bit less is for some of the high school age. There's something important that I want to talk about this in terms of, though, we're doing kind of a 10-year look. And so when we're doing these things, we're making these estimates, it's important to note that we feel pretty good about our 3-year, good about our 5-year. But when you reach out into that 10-year window, it's a little bit more difficult because you're making assumptions on assumptions. So no different than if you're going to have last night I used the wedding. Let's say you're going to have a graduation party in 10 days and the weather forecast is for rain in 10 days. Well, you're going to take that under advisement, but you're not going to move the party indoors yet. You come back around to that weather forecast in 7 days, still chance of rain. You're starting to maybe consider some alternate plans. On a 5-day forecast, if they say it's going to rain, you're trying to figure out if you can get a tent. On a 3-day forecast, you're moving the party inside if they're calling for rain. Very similar when you're demographic analysis. So it's important, and we'll see some other numbers here momentarily. It's important that we refresh, just like the weather forecast, we refresh and get more current data each year so that we're staying within that 3-year window of having actionable information. Population by race and ethnicity, easy for me to say. You can kind of see how the breakout in your cohort. Economic overview. So you can kind of see where you fall in terms of millennials retiring soon. You have a bit of an aging population, as we saw in that prior graphic, and then racial diversity. And an average earning per job within the PGUSD and within this little region actually is about 66,000, almost 70,000. And you can see Pacific Grove employment. Again, we all know what took place in 2020. And so for a lot of communities and a lot of schools, it was kind of a whammy of you fell off and it's hard to get, for many places, it's been hard to get back to those pre-COVID numbers. You're building out that way. Top industries within Monterey County: agriculture, fishing, and hunting. We also know there's a retail trade is pretty strong in your area, especially along Cannery Row in those areas. Growing because of your aging population. We're also seeing in this region healthcare and social assistance as an area of growth. All right, so school district, you have, no surprises here, you have 5 campuses that you maintain. Forest Grove, Robert Down, Pacific Grove, Community High, which is the David Avenue campus, and then Pacific Grove. And we're going to talk about the years of these buildings here momentarily in another slide, but it's important to note that, Forest Grove, 1959, Robert Down, 1929, Pacific Grove, 1911, and if you know anything about your community, it burned in 1948. It was rebuilt. Some great online pictures of that, or maybe I should say tragic online pictures of that. Let's go with that. And then David Avenue campus, 1951, and Pacific Grove, 55, 59, with some big additions in 2011. So in terms of your community, median family household income, 106. I won't lean into all of this. It's, you know, you have strong broadband. Most of your houses most of your housing structures are houses themselves. Interesting though, this is an interesting number to me, is the 70.3, the number of homes you have that were built prior to 1970. So a lot of your housing stock is older homes, older facilities. It's also reflected in your schools, to be quite honest with you. Your community values your older homes, values existing structures, but there's just a unique skill set and a cost and a due diligence that comes with facilities and homes and schools of those ages. Children in school, no big, 99% have health coverage. Most of them are married couples, 69%. So, and very low food stamp in SNAP benefits in this community. Immediate parents, just parents of children in the public school, median family household, median family, I'm not even saying that right. Let's start over. Median income of households, there you go, 170,000, and 87%. So, the big one here, although this laser doesn't only work on the screen, is your bachelor's degree or higher. You're a very highly educated community. So kind of getting into how it works, how we get to our numbers. And so there's two analogies for this. This is either how the sausage is made or how the cake is baked. So whichever one you want. These are the ingredients that kind of come into a forecast, okay? So you have your birth data. You got the number of kids born into a community, and then how many of them show up at kindergarten, okay? And then are reflected in your kindergarten classes. You've got mobility factors, and that quite simply is how many come in, how many go out. How many of them as a cohort start in kindergarten and matriculate all the way through and graduate together when they come out the back end at the far end at high school. So if you had 100 kids I'll just make up a number, you had 100 kids in kindergarten and next year you had 102, then your mobility was, a 2%. 0.02. Likewise, if you had 98, you had a loss of 2, and that kind of builds forward. And the student yield factors, and this is something that doesn't quite frankly have a large bearing on your community, because this deals with new properties coming online. This deals with new residents, new apartments, new multifamily, and the student yield. So if you have what we know is this, single family homes generate the largest number of students per home coming into the schools, depending on the size of the family. Now, that kind of goes back to the birth factors, though, because as we well know, families are smaller. In general, families have been smaller, and that trend has been going for quite a while. We've also seen a situation where there's delayed childbirth. Many of us, speaking for myself, we had our kids in our early to mid 20s, where now we're seeing a lot of families not taking place. Delayed childbirth of the late 20s into the early 30s. So all of those things impact your birth rates and impact the number of students that will come in through your front doors. So all of these things, the birth factors, the mobility in and out, the student yield factors, the one other caveat I would make to this is, as you have an older population, there's kind of a flip point there where those houses begin to turn. And so young families come back into those communities. You can kind of see those neighborhoods regenerated in terms of children coming into schools. And that you have to kind of monitor through the mobility and student yield, but you just never know how that's going to work. We see some communities where we work, where we have a large number of folks that will downsize, but they're able to stay within that same community from a housing standpoint. And what we also know from a housing standpoint with interest rates right now is many folks they had that 3% interest rate or that 2% interest rate, or they bought in at a much lower housing value. And so they're not moving as a result. Even if they age out in terms of student population, in terms of their own students in that school, Mr. and Mrs. Smith may have had 4 kids that went through the district, but they still live in the same house. And so they're not generating students for that district. Went down a well. So methodology, this is what I call the mathy math of it. Okay, so we have these different models, and the cohort survival sounds brutal, but it actually is what it is. You got a cohort of students, and how many of them make it to the end? If you had 100 and only 90 and 96 made it to the end, loss of 4%. If you had 100 and had 104 at the end, gain of 4%. So we take all these, these increases, linear regression, historic values, cohort survival, the student age, kind of deals with the number of students that can be expected within each level of that school. And then we weight these models in order to generate our forecasts. And so I use that, that 10-day party planning for the demographic analysis. This one's hurricane. I know you don't have hurricanes here, but you watch the Today Show or Good Morning America, and they talk about a hurricane on the East Coast or down in Florida. And so it's very much like this. This is almost like hurricane modeling. So all these models come together in order to create our averages for your district. And having this, so this upper line is your total student population. And again, we're looking back 10 years to look forward 10 years. And probably should have talked more about the 3-day window here. Maybe I will tonight. I'll change that mind. So again, looking back, you had a peak here in 2017 of 2,084 students. And then, you kind of see what happened. We trend down through COVID, kind of plateaued coming into now at the present day. Your present day is your plus or minus 1,725 kids, 1,710, somewhere into that. So we're forecasting just a slight decline as you go forward here, 1,710, 1,680, 1,657. Nothing precipitous, but a general trend downward. Now, I know you're probably looking all the way over to 2034 and saying, oh my gosh, 1436. But again, you have to kind of refresh that data each year in order to kind of stay within that 3-year window, being a 3 to 5 year window, to be able to kind of forecast forward. As houses begin to switch, as new industries maybe come into your region, you might see a situation where additional housing stock comes online, younger families are able to come into your community, that sort of thing. So you have to refresh that each year. Now, the great news about our presentation today is we're presenting nothing that comes from a situation of crisis. We're presenting nothing where everybody should be, where there should be any reason to be upset. You're able to take this information, look at it from a position of strength, and be able to make informed decisions going forward. So this decline of students, while it is a few students each year, 20 to 30 students, it's not enough. It's not a drastic decline. It's not anything that's going to dramatically impact your students and your utilization of your facilities at this point. But it is something you have to be aware of going forward and be cognizant of. The lower 3 bands are your, PK 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12. And so as we talked about, the ages, that 5-year-old, 5 to 9-year-old range coming down a little bit. Your 9 to 12s, as those groups matriculate through into the high school, those numbers kind of hold as those kids roll through into the high school, into the secondary level. So projected enrollments. So for Forest Grove, what we're seeing is you're presently about 310 or so, and we're just seeing about a 20 kid decline, kind of rolling forward. On Robert Down, what we're seeing again is kind of a plus or minus 400 there, about a 20 kid decline kind of rolling forward. Again, nothing dramatic, but from our general trends, each building is experiencing a slight decline. Middle school, similarly, we're at about 425 right now. We're forecasting 422, 417, 398, 391 going forward. For your high school, roughly 550, 540 at this point, 525, 517, 509. So nothing dramatic, but a general decline overall. And then community school, we include this just for comparative purposes. With the alternative programming at the school, this is kind of this is based on student needs. So you're going to have plus or minus 20 students, hopefully no more than that in terms of need in this program going forward. All right, so building capacity. Please note this is not one of your buildings. As a side note, don't want a round building ever. Line of sight is terrible, and they're all pizza. Never mind. I'm going to go down a well again. All right, here we go. So let's talk about functional capacity. So function of the capacity of a building many times is a choice, depending on the programs that are offered within that facility. Also, especially post-COVID, we've had these conversations surrounding additional mental health services and counselors coming into your building. Any of these programs that you bring into a facility have to have real estate. They have to have a place to go. If you expand your CTE programs, like for example, at your middle school, you call it the Flex Lab. Am I using the right term? Okay. The Flex Lab. Well, when you create these lab spaces, whether it be a science lab or a flex lab or any of the kind of labs, that removes it as a classroom space because it becomes a shared use space. So that will impact the overall capacity of a facility. If you're going to add additional CTE programs or STEM programs at your middle school and high school, that will impact that. If you expand art programming or other things at your elementaries, or you bring in other resources for your elementaries, might take classrooms offline, and that would decrease the capacity, but might increase the utilization based on the programs that are offered. If you have additional special needs in a school, for example, a general classroom might be built out at about 20 to 25 students a room. But if you have a severe and profound classroom, I know that's an old school term, but if you have students with extreme special needs, then the capacity of that room is only 8 or maybe 6, depending on the need. So all these things, these programmatic decisions that are made impact a capacity of a given facility in terms of its functional capacity. And so we took a look at all your building maps, we charted out all the programs in a given room, and then we developed capacity and utilization for each of those facilities in partnership with district leadership. So here's your capacity and utilization for your given facilities, schools. Now, importantly, this 80 to 95, that's for this rating, 80 to 95 is our sweet spot. It's kind of getting your schools to green. And so you're not far off, especially like Forest Grove is just off by a little, high 70s. Robert Downs at 93, 81 for Pacific Grove Middle, Pacific Grove High is at 91. David Avenue, again, it's its own special program, so it's just going to fluctuate depending on the number of students that are in need for that. And then your adult school, doesn't have enrollment because it has basically the number of adult programs that roll through. You've got 1,800 to 2,000 folks from your community that make use of this facility. As a sidebar, what a terrific resource for your community. I shared this last night. We travel the nation in these programs, and this is probably the most vibrant adult school program that I've ever witnessed or had an opportunity to kind of go and review and see. It's a terrific asset for your community. Likewise, the David Avenue School. You're looking at, you're going, 58% utilization, but those students need to have a place to land. If they can't be successful in your traditional education programs, it's kind of strong of me to say, but I have said this across the nation, there are no throwaway children. So we have to figure out a way to have them find success, and the David Avenue program is one of those programs that helps those students find a path to future success, because they're going to be in your community whether they're in your school or not. So it's important that they have a place to land. Similarly for your adult school, what a great resource in terms of things going on there, from parenting classes up to language classes. You've got some adult, the special needs programming for some of the students there that have aged out of these programs, the preschool on the backside, and all those outdoor lab space. What a fantastic space. All right, so facility assessment. Oh, real quick, back to this. That 80 to 95, that adequate space, you're going, why isn't it higher? Well, this allows for bubble groups. This allows for that flex of, if you've got an AP class that might have a little lower enrollment, but you got a band class with a higher enrollment, or PE classes at higher, or it allows for that bubble group if you have to have an extra section of kindergarten because you had additional, let's hope, you have an extra section of kindergarten because you have a bubble group that comes through. It's that flexibility in a building to meet the needs of the students, because they don't come in perfect units of 20 or 25. Facility assessments. Now, this one's a little different. This is the old-fashioned, straight-up 60, 70, 80, 90 grading scale. And one of the things we kind of pride ourselves on in our work is trying to make the information that we share, information that I call it the elevator speech. You as our ambassadors can kind of go out and talk in your community and give a concise speech of, hey, well, what's going on there? Well, this is what's going on. This is what I saw. And it's a straight 60, 70, 80, 90, and we give it a color coding just for quick frame of reference. Again, kind of getting things to green, trying to help facilities rise up and be the kind of facilities you want them to be for your students. And our assessments include technology readiness, and we walk through every building assessing the wireless systems, the whether, if you turn it on, does it work? For example, we're sharing this via Zoom, and from a technology standpoint, does it work? When the teachers roll, and there's nothing worse as the teachers, you roll in, you turn it all on, and nothing works, or the internet's down, or the software won't load, or the website's down, and then you're tap dancing. I mean, you always got the fallback, but that isn't what you had planned for that day. And it's critical for teachers and for students that the technology works. Post-COVID, there's been a lot of investments in those things, and we'll talk more about that momentarily. Educational suitability is that functionality of a building. Does it have the purpose-built spaces for the programs that you're wanting to provide for your students? Can you get your kids through in a timely manner through the cafeteria, through the serving lines? All the environment of the space, those types of things lean into suitability or functionality of a space. You can have a big old building. It could be a warehouse. It's got plenty of space, but it doesn't really work for kids. So you kind of look at those purpose-built spaces. Grounds conditions are just those things, the outdoor spaces, the landscaping, the drainage, all those things from the outdoor spaces. And then building condition, that's the biggie. That's the building envelope. That's the floors, the walls, the roof, the ceilings, the plumbing. Those, you could roll into a building and spend $20 million, and you go the next day and look at it and go, what'd you spend it on? Well, you spent it on a new HVAC. You put a roof on. You replaced some of the windows. You did the flooring. So you had to replace, let's say you had to replace main lines from plumbing. Those are big ticket items that you don't see, but that's building condition. And then we have combined scores. We weight those and we give you a combined score. So from a facility assessment, again, I included, again, the ages of the buildings here. Robert Down Elementary, Forest Grove, which I found out actually started out as Congress Elementary, for those of you of a certain age. I think 1 year, either it was during construction or the very first year, and then it was switched over to Forest Grove. Pacific Grove Middle School, again, 1911 and 1948. Oh, that says 6 there. And then Pacific Grove High School, David Avenue campus, and then the Pacific Grove Adult Education that was formerly the Lighthouse Elementary until '89. Now you're looking at these scores and you're saying, well, we only got one in green, but these are really good scores, to be honest with you, in terms of the investment given the ages of your buildings, because it's almost impossible. A brand new building is in the 90s, okay? But a building is just like a car you bought at the lot. You bought this brand new, I'll make up a brand new Ford F-150. We'll go with the pickup. $60,000 vehicle. You roll it off the lot, and what's it worth? $55,000. The farther you go, $50,000, $45,000, $40,000. So a school is no different. And for communities, when you build a new school, I was a superintendent where they were talking about the new high school. Well, I was getting ready to pay off the 30-year bond on the new high school because it was the new high school. And so even newer facilities immediately from a roof standpoint, from an HVAC standpoint and upkeep. And what we know about like boilers, for example, is you can go to an older facility that has this boiler from the 70s and you're going, well, it still works. And then we have this boiler from the 90s that we're having to replace because they just don't last like they used to last. Almost the higher efficiencies, trying to eke out every piece of energy out of it, they just don't last as well, like washing machines. Your mother probably had the same washing machine her entire life, a GE with a brick in the bottom of it. Quite literally a cinder block in the bottom of it, right? And if she overloaded it, it'd dance across the floor. People of a certain age. But they don't last like that anymore. Similarly, looking at your facilities, what this tells me as an outside observer is that current district leadership and past district leadership has made a concerted effort to keep your buildings up. Because many places where we go, because I love older buildings. I love older buildings that are well maintained and they're still meeting the needs of students in terms of learning. And you have some great facilities. But with these scores being what they are, you don't have any in the orange. So if you're thinking of this being, are they C buildings? Well, that in this case, that means they're average. That means you've done a really good job of investing them in the past. I know that because I have a little note here. In 2014, you had Measure A, and Measure A dealt primarily with technology, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. In 2020, you had Measure D, which put it out of order in terms of alphabetical. I'm not sure I understand that. And then in 2024, you had Measure B in terms of your bonding. And all of those things dealt with, many of those bonds, other than Measure A, dealt with kind of your building envelope, some of the big ticket items, the hidden items that most people don't see or understand in terms of that investment. And so these scores are very strong in terms of your overall facilities, because what we know is that it's harder to maintain an older facility well. There are just some quirks of those facilities. Educational suitability. So these deals with the design. Does it provide for and support the programs that are offered? Purpose-built spaces. And for example, at Pacific Grove High School, with your CTE and your culinary arts program and some very specific purpose-built spaces there that you have. And some of those spaces have been repurposed in terms of CTE and those kinds of things. And so and it almost have like a mixed use, mixed program approach to it. But some terrific spaces. Again, you've got some older rooms. I know they're slated to be either to be renovated or repurposed and that kind of thing. But in general, this educational suitability deals with, does the space meet? It's not about the building envelope. Does the space meet the needs of the learning that's going on in that facility? And so these are very strong scores, and especially at your middle school. For older facilities at your middle school and high school, those are terrific scores. Again, getting things to green, kind of bringing that up into that 80% range. And there's just a lot of things going on at the adult education, from parenting classes through the language, just a lot of things going on there. David Avenue campus, if I'm very candid, it needs some rethinking, some repurposing in those spaces. It's not anything your district isn't aware of or understands, and they know that. But this is part of that process to kind of gauge what the community, how the community feels about that and what they like to see going forward. And also, the survey will include your staff members. So those folks get kind of weigh in. The people on the ground then get to weigh in on, okay, this is what I see. This is what I feel the need might be. And so again, very strong scores overall in looking at these. Let me just say this, because I know you're looking at two elementary scores and you're going, well, why are they in the yellow? Well, our visit is kind of a snapshot in time. So it's like a Polaroid picture. So if it's not there the day we were there, it doesn't exist in terms of our assessments. Part of our assessments are purpose-built, art spaces, purpose-built music spaces, and some of those things that you've taken some measures at the elementary level to have, but they're not really truly purpose-built spaces in those areas. Facility assessment, these are technology readiness. Again, Measure A had dealt a lot with this, and you made a strong investment in these areas. This is an area of strength for your district. When you turn the technology on, it works. When a kid opens their laptop or their Chromebook in the school, they have the anticipation that it will work. That it wasn't always the case in public schools. If you were an elementary teacher, you'd walk in the door saying, oh, is the technology up to date? Are we going to be, that was kind of the starting question of the day to make sure that if you had to flip over to plan B in order to get through the day. Here's the challenge of technology, though. If it's 4 years old, it's not cutting edge technology. How many phones have you had in 4 years? The Chromebooks really are obsolete after 4 years because the bandwidth, the programs, the things, the interactivity of those things, plus the chip, the improvements in technology going forward. So even your Wi-Fi nodes and things become outdated because they're expected to transfer more data than ever before exponentially each year. So each of these, and a lot of it's cloud-based, and so you're having to bring it down and bring it in and process it through. We were also proud when we got away from the old dummy terminals. Well, I'm really aging myself. Only certain people are nodding their head. You had terminals that, the software, and then we could load all the software to our computers and it works so much faster and so much better. It's almost like we've gone back the other way because now we're bringing that information again from the cloud, but just because of the data storage and that processing power. But again, an area of strength and an area of you ought to call it an area of pride for your community in terms of the functionality of your technology. Grounds condition, these are areas, you know, I know when it rains here, there's issues with water. We know that, you know, and these are very strong scores. Really, this is the only score you've seen in this entire presentation that's in the orange. And there's quite frankly some drainage issues around the facility. Your adult education and some general grounds issues there that the district's aware of. They're taking steps on. But again, it's that snapshot in time. So when we were there that day, this is what we saw. And so, but again, these are really strong scores, especially around your Forest Grove there and Pacific Grove High School. And so these are your overall combined scores. We'll weight these out. We give a little more weight to the building condition because that is the most expensive item, to be honest with you. And so if we bring these scores forward, you can see that combined score on the far end. And so again, we talk about getting to green. So you're not far off. Robert Downs at a 76, Pacific Grove Middle School. If I just could have figured out a way to get you 0.25, I'd have felt better about it. But, you know, and some of those steps have probably already been taken. And then the high school, given the age of your high school and its score, that's a terrific score. David Avenue campus, as we've talked about, has some needs that are going to be addressed. And again, Pacific Grove at 77 with that ground score. But, you know, but their suitability score, there's some great spaces there at that 86 for the high school, for the adult education, and their technology was strong as well. So again, now we're up to the point of community input. At this point, though, do you have anybody online? If you've got questions for me about anything you've seen thus far in the presentation, I would ask that when Monica gets started, we kind of get through that portion of it. I will say this. At the very end of our survey, there's an open-ended question. So going to be an opportunity for you to share any insights you have. I know that the local utilities have been some concerns for the community as a whole. It's not something the district obviously has control over, but if that is a concern for you, be sure to list that in, is that question 17? 19, question 19 at the very end. What we'll do with that community insights from this meeting, from last night's meeting and tonight's meeting, plus the community survey, we will take those open-ended questions and then we'll quantify them into areas and categories of concern. And that's a very important question for us because if it's something we've not covered or if it's a concern, even if it's like the utilities and it's not something that the district has complete control over, it is something then they can share with those that may have more control over it. And so it gives the school board and district leadership some leverage to say, hey, look, we know this is a concern, but we've seen this as a concern in our polling and that kind of thing. So be sure to, you know, and we'll leave that up for a little while afterwards. So any general questions right now? I couldn't have done such a good job. Go ahead.
You didn't mention anything about athletic facilities. Do you address that
Yes,
at all?
we examine your athletic facilities as a part of the grounds. It's also a part of the suitability and the building. So each of those facilities then are baked into those component parts. Yes, the field itself. A lot of times what we'll get into in those areas would be like the playgrounds. Some of your playgrounds are in better shape than others. And so you've also got California sun here. So you get sun scald on some of those outside facilities. A couple of your facility. Now, it can also be a tale of two cities. You know, for some of your buildings, you know, you're looking at those scores and, well, I know I've got some rooms that are not in that great of shape, but that's also kind of seesawed by the rooms that you have that are in great shape. So, you know, you have some portables and some modulars. You got, what do you call them here? Modulars? Learning cottages. Okay. This sounds so much nicer. Learning cottage. That's right. Double wide. No. I will say this for California has some very specific purpose-built learning cottages that are not bad when they're brand new. The challenge becomes just like any of these facilities, and especially how they were put into place and that kind of thing, that can become a challenge for some of those spaces. And so all of that's kind of baked into our overall scoring. Now, the district will get a detailed printout of every one of those assessments. So if modular 27 has issues, modular 27 will be noted and that kind of anything specific, any panels that we noted that are specific. So these are the overarching scores, and then they get a PDF with all of the very specific information that we have. Did I answer your question? Okay.
hoping to drive some of the students from the Robert Down School to Forest Grove because of the lower attendance there, or what would be?
Well, what I would tell you is this, is that the information you're seeing, you've actually seen it before the school board. So there's no hidden information. So we don't know what they will choose to do in regard to that. They'll have this information. We'll gather insights from your community. If that's something the community raises, then it would be something they'd want to talk about. We do have questions in the polling regarding that if it were to come to that, what are your preferences in regard to how that would be conducted? But there are no, I want to stress, there are no plans for anything in regard to that right now. The district officials just saw this information probably 2 weeks ago. So, we are point number 5 in that kind of continuum, because from a full transparency standpoint, and this is one of the big things for me, is your community has to understand that you're seeing the same information they're seeing, and they don't know what they're going to do to it until they gather your insights. And so the short answer to that is there's not a plan for that at this moment, but it's something that might have to be considered, just obviously from a data standpoint. Okay.
Hi, I just had a question about like disability access to the middle school and Robert Down.
Can she type it?
Oh, let's see here.
Go ahead, if you don't mind, those of you that know a lot, if you have a question, put that in the chat. And if I don't get to it right now, I'll get to it at the very end.
To the middle school and
We'll tell you what, for continuity purposes, we'll go ahead and go with Monica's portion of it. And then if you've got questions online, if you'll put that in the chat, and we'll make sure that we address those at the end. You're gonna work from there.
Was disability access to the middle school in Robert Down?
Any of those in terms of ADA compliance are a part of our overall report. So the short answer is yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Monica Ferreira. I'm here to assist you with the polling portion of our presentation. So just a few housekeeping rules about the polling. First of all, there are 3 ways to access it. One is via scanning the QR code. The other is to go onto the URL directly, and you'll want to type out that full URL. And then if you don't have internet access or you're not able to fully load it, you can also text in your answer choices by first typing in the message MGT Consulting 4 to the phone number 22333. And then from there, you'll text A, B, C, or D as needed. And then from here, whenever you are seeing the questions on the screen, it's going to be matching what's going onto your phone as well. So you aren't going to be able to go forward or backwards, and we're going to be doing the survey as a group together. But if at any time the question on the screen doesn't match what's on your phone, just go ahead and hit that refresh button, and then you'll be able to see the questions pop up from there. So starting with our first question, what is your relationship with the district? Select all that apply. It looks like we mostly have parents and then community members. On to question 2. If you are no employees at this session, this is a community session. And there we go. If you have a child or are a student that attends the school district, what school do they attend? A for Forest Grove, B for Robert Down, C for Pacific Grove Middle, D for Community High, and E for Pacific Grove High. Oh, let's see, you should be able to. Yes, that one you can select multiple. And if at any time you do select something that you wish to change, if you're on the browser, there should be a trash icon next to what you selected. Just hit that and you'll be able to refresh. And if you're texting in, just text the word undo, and then it will go ahead and erase what you'd previously typed, and then you just send in the correct answer from there. There we go. Okay, so mostly Pacific Grove Middle School students, followed by Robert Downey, and then Pacific Grove High as well. Perfect. On to question 5. In one word, please describe an area or focus where the district does well. So what are you most proud of in the schools? So this is going to be a word wall question where the more times a word is selected or responded, the bigger it is going to be on the screen. And we just say one word for now, but at the very end, we do have that free response question. We'll keep that open for about 30 minutes past the session so you have enough time to fully flesh out your thoughts. But so far, it looks like support, location, and teachers. Excellent. Technology. We did see those amazing scores for the technology suitability. Give this one a few more seconds. Perfect. Question 6. In one word, please describe an area or focus for improvement for the district. So what is something that you wish for the district? Again, this is a free response word wall, so the bigger the word, the more times it is responded. Diversity, modernization, mental health. Excellent ideas. We did see a lot of modernization at yesterday's session as well. Facilities. Excellent. Safety. And we do have some questions about safety coming up as well, so we'll dive a little into that too. Perfect. Question 7. How would you rate the overall condition of the school facilities you're associated with, considering factors such as building maintenance, classroom conditions, safety, and accessibility? A for excellent, B for good, C for fair, D for poor, and E for unsatisfactory. Mostly in that good to fair range, a few excellent. Perfect. Question 8. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? There should be equal academic opportunities for all students across the district in all schools. So this is just making sure that if there are certain programs in one school, like the elementary school, that they'll be offered in the other schools as well, just to make sure that it is equitable across the board for the students. Strongly agree, somewhat agree. No dissenters yet. Perfect. Question 9. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? There should be high quality extracurricular activities in all schools. So think about sports, think about band and orchestra, those kinds of outside clubs, so those kinds of programs there. All in agreement. Perfect. Question 10. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? There should be equal resources for special education, tutoring, counseling, DLI, which is the dual language immersion, gifted and talent programs, and other support services in all schools. So again, making sure that there's equal opportunities in all schools for all students, regardless of where you live and which school that you are going to. Still in agreement, perfect. Question 11. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? There should be an expansion of career and technical education, or STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, across the district. So this is just kind of helping the students be prepared for their future. And this can also be at different levels, just kind of gauging the interest of the students as they go through. And then by the time they get into high school, maybe even having those courses that are able to let them have, college credits when they graduate, or letting them be able to just jump right into their vocation. 200. There we go. Some neutral here, but still mostly in agreement. Perfect. Question 12. Which planning objectives are the most important to you? So for this one, you'll choose two answers. A will be the building capacity, ensuring that the schools have enough space for the students. B for improved utilization or optimization, making better use of the existing school spaces. So this could be repurposing or redesigning the facilities as needed. Option C is the building condition in keeping the school buildings well maintained and addressing repairs and infrastructure. D for safety and security, enhancing security measures such as updated entry systems and surveillance. E for enhanced educational opportunities, so expanding and improving programs like the Korean academic success or that dual language immersion. F for improved extracurricular activities, investing in sports, arts, clubs, and anything related to those. And then G for equitable facilities district-wide, ensuring that all schools, regardless of locations, have access to high-quality buildings and resources. It looks like the top two are the building condition and then safety and security. Perfect. Question 13. What facility planning objectives are the least important to you? So this is the flip side of that question, but the same answer choices here, and you'll still be able to select two options. Building capacity and utilization so far. Give this one a few more seconds. Perfect. Question 14. When considering school facility improvements, which approach do you believe is the best way to address challenges in your schools? Comprehensive long-term solutions, which are investing in major renovations, new school constructions, and permanent building upgrades. Option B is incremental short-term solutions, such as addressing immediate facility concerns and temporary measures, such as replacing aging classrooms. And then C is a mixture of both approaches, combining both long-term investments while also addressing any urgent needs right away. And then D is neutral, so just kind of saying as long as it gets fixed, I'm happy with it. So a mixture of both looks like the most popular. Perfect. Question 15. Which priorities do you consider to be the most important in the development of a school optimization plan? This one you'll be able to select two again. So A will be for transportation, ensuring efficient and effective student transportation routes. B is minimizing impact, so minimizing the number of students that are impacted by any potential boundary adjustments. Not necessarily saying this is happening right now, but just in case this happens, making sure that that is accounted for. C is special programs and populations, so minimizing disruptions and impacts to special programs, such as that dual language immersion, the Korean academic success, free and reduced lunch programs. D for neighborhood schools, prioritizing schools that serve students within their local neighborhoods, which is mostly an issue with the elementary schools since those are two different elementary schools there. E for capacity and utilization, optimizing the use of school facilities to match current and projected enrollment and balancing utilization. And then F will be other, which you'll be able to specify in that last free response question. capacity utilization, and then special programs. Give this one a few more seconds. Perfect. Question 16. Of the following options, what should be included in a school facility's basic standard requirements? This one you'll have three options to choose from. A being the watertight building envelopes such as the roofs, the windows, the walls to prevent leaks and mold and any structural damage. B is reliable heating in all areas. C is career and technical education spaces. D is maker spaces for STEM courses, those science, technology, engineering, mathematics. E is on-site athletic fields that provide safe spaces for physical education and sports teams. F for secured and locked buildings, meaning controlled access points and enhanced security measures to protect the students and staff. And then G for reliable internet connectivity to ensure that everyone has reliable internet to connect to. Looks like A and B are the most popular. Perfect. Question 17. Which types of career and technical education pathways would you like to see offered at PGUSD? And for this one, you can choose up to two options. So we have agriculture, food and nature resources, architecture and construction, arts, technology and communication, business, marketing and finance, education and training, health science. And as we see that health science is one of the top growing industries as well. So seeing if you want to prepare your students to try and enter that as more jobs are opening in that industry. G for hospitality and tourism. H for human services. I for information and technology. J for public safety, law, corrections and security. K for manufacturing. L for the STEMs. And then M for transportation, distribution, and logistics. Looks like health science is the most popular, followed by the arts. Give this one a few more seconds. Perfect. Question 18. In one word, please describe what you feel is the most critical issue to be addressed in the development of the facility optimization plan. Again, this is the word wall, so the bigger the word is, the more times it has been responded. Modernization again. Common theme we've seen so far. Safety. Admin. Water, okay. Oh, clean water. Housing. But safety is the biggest concern or critical issue. Perfect. And then on to our last question. Do you have any additional thoughts on this topic or information you want to share? Do you have any additional recommendations for the district? So this one is the completely free response question. So you'll just type out as much information as you like, anything that we might have missed or anything that you'd like to elaborate on. And even if you don't see the questions up here, we will keep this open for about half an hour past the presentation so that you have full reign to put in all your thoughts and opinions. And then we will also have the survey available online, the exact same questions, the exact same number choices there. So whenever that rolls out, please let everyone in the community know that the survey is launched, just so that we have additional data points and we know how best to serve your community. But thank you very much for coming out this morning and spending your time with us. This has been a very helpful session for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Richard. We appreciate your leading through this. Are there any closing questions or anything that we haven't maybe answered, whether online or here in person, that we maybe just want to take a moment to address? Everyone. So I'll answer from my, perspective, and then, Richard, I'd love your input as well. But I mean, absolutely, I think, the idea will be to bring forward sort of a draft of what we have to a future board meeting. And really, there's that opportunity as well for all of our trustees to really be able to give their feedback there as well. And really based on that feedback, that would then allow for MGT to go ahead and make the final revisions, to the actual plan itself. But Richard, I'd love from your standpoint, anything further.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Mhm.
I like it even doing better. Yes, the answer is yes. So we will compile this information. The survey will be on for about a week or 10 days. So if we get it posted this Friday, then it'll be kind of 2 weekends out. Then Monica will actually drill down all the community information and share that back in the report. And we will present all the information, including the information you've seen tonight or today in terms of the building information. All that will come back into a final report that will be shared with the board, with the district. And so everyone then will get to see what the community thought, what the community inputs were, what the key information from the open-ended questions. And again, at that point, then the district can ascertain as to whether or not what actionable items are there and how the board would like to go forward with that information. Equally appreciate the fact that you guys come on.
And I think Monica said it several times, but please, once that survey goes out, use your influence to, share it far and wide, and we'll be doing the same from our end as well. So thank you again for being here this morning. We appreciate it.